Right. Hey, Judge Napolitano joins us. We got all sorts of questions about what's going on in the news. Judge, you see the stories about this FBI agent who looks like he went rogue. His name is Peter Strzok. With every move that he has made in the last year under a microscope, what stands out in your mind as things that look biased where it shouldn't be?
I'll tell you what's the most unusual, and good morning, everybody. I'll tell you what's the most unusual thing. When the FBI interrogated General Flynn in the White House on January 24, 4 days into Donald Trump's presidency, it already had transcripts of every one of the general's conversations with Ambassador Kislyak, of which we now know there were 5, between the day of the election and the day of the inauguration. So if they had the transcripts of those conversations, what was the purpose of interrogating the general?
To trap him.
To trap him, which they succeeded in doing. One of the interrogators
Is that wrong, first off? On the premise, I heard you say the last night, is the premise of that wrong?
In my personal view, yes, the government should not be in the business of trapping people. Supreme Court says it's okay, and the government does it all the time. Why would they do this to the president's principal foreign policy advisor? We didn't have a Secretary of State at the time. General Flynn had been at the ear of Donald Trump since June of 2015, when Donald Trump announced he was running for president. So why would the FBI be in a position to do that? We don't know the answer to that. Flip side of this is, the general used to be in charge of all the spies in the military. He was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Thousands of people running surveillance to keep America safe under him. How could he not know that the FBI had transcripts of these conversations? So just as mysterious as is why did the FBI interrogate him is why didn't he tell the truth?
So what about this guy, though, Peter Strzok, who changed in Comey's narrative about Hillary Clinton, changed it from grossly negligent to extremely careless, because grossly negligent is criminal.
Extremely careless sounds a little softer. But if you ask a first-year law student what is the definition of gross negligence, the answer is extreme carelessness. There really, in the law, is no different there. So if he changed this, Jim Comey still has to bear responsibility for it because he uttered the statement. It wasn't a written statement. It was a spoken statement. And he's responsible for what he says, even if somebody else drafted it for him. But I have been arguing for 11 months now that the Comey decision was wrong on the facts, wrong on the law, and not his to make. Why doesn't Jeff Sessions see it that way?
Yeah, why?
Why does the president have to taunt the DOJ and the FBI instead of Jeff Sessions taking this evidence, presenting it to a grand jury, and letting the grand jury decide whether or not Mrs. Clinton should be indicted for espionage?
I want to talk about Peter Strzok for a second. Look at what he's a part of, this guy. He's a part of the Flynn setup, would you say, the trap. He's part of looking at the 35,000 emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop. He's part of this gross negligence and the flipping of the language. He is also caught texting anti-Trump views to his mistress on the side. And then he's moved into human resources.
Okay.
Who ever heard of that?
Okay, I understand the point, but I want to make 2 observations. I have never met an FBI agent that did not have a political opinion. These are smart, intelligent people. They work in the government. They have the same feelings the rest of us do. But if those opinions cloud your judgment or animate your judgment, you should be off the case. So when Jim Comey utilized the services of Peter Strzok, he stayed on the case. When Bob Mueller recognized what an advocate this guy was for one of the 2 sides, he got off the case.
Yeah, but not right away.
Well, we don't know when Mueller learned this, and he's off the case.
So these are some of the headlines this morning. Senator Blumenthal says credible case for obstruction of justice against President Trump.
Right.
Senator Feinstein, I see obstruction of justice case forming against President Trump.
Okay, so obstruction of justice is the interference with a judicial proceeding or a law enforcement proceeding. Here's the key phrase: for a corrupt purpose. So if Donald Trump said to Jim Comey, back off of General Flynn, if he said that to Dan Coates, who runs national intelligence, if he said it to Admiral Rogers, who runs the NSA, and he did it because I feel sorry for General Flynn. He's a buddy. Been through enough. That's not a corrupt purpose. Or the FBI has limited resources. They'd be better off chasing bank robbers and terrorists than chasing Mike Flynn. That's okay. But if the purpose was, I'm worried what beans Mike Flynn might spill about me or about somebody close to me, that's a corrupt purpose.
But it's impossible to get inside his head. Here's what Trey Gowdy said yesterday to that very question.
About the memos.
Yep.
Obstruction of justice, remember, that started being discussed when Comey had these memos that he said he made. I've read the memos. I've read every one of Comey's memos. They would be defense exhibit A in an obstruction of justice case, not prosecution exhibit, defense exhibit A. If Comey felt obstructed, he did a masterful job of keeping it out of any of his memos.
It is the rare crime where you don't have to succeed. The obstructor doesn't have to succeed. He just has to attempt to interfere. What is in Donald Trump's mind? Who knows? It's up to what evidence surrounds his behavior from which a fact finder would infer what's in his mind.
Well, because
is obstruction of justice a crime? Of course it is. Is it an impeachable offense? Most lawyers and judges agree that it is.
Well, it's starting to put doubt in people's minds as to whether or not the FBI can administer a fair investigation. So Christopher Wray, who's now the director of the FBI, he sent a memo to all of his employees to try to boost morale. And this is what it said. Please continue to keep focused on our critical mission with fidelity, bravery, and integrity. The American people rightly expect this from us. Keep calm and tackle hard.
Now, knowing Chris Wray, my guess is that he actually is speaking to people who have strong political views. That's a very nice thing to say, but that's going to go in one ear and out the other of the thousands of FBI agents. But if there are FBI agents involved in these politically sensitive investigations, they're not prosecutions yet, you have to find out whether the politics is interfering with the professional judgment. If the politics is interfering with, clouding or animating the professional judgment, the person needs to be transferred to another investigation. You can certainly have a strong political opinion, but it can't be on the front burner as you make law enforcement decisions.
But I'll tell you, Wall Street Journal today, lead editorial, they have a major problem with the Mueller investigation, especially how slow he moved to move him out, as well as being obstructive when it comes to Devin Nunes's Intelligence Committee.
Well, that is another strange relationship. These things are not supposed to happen when the same political party runs Congress as runs the White House and the executive branch. Who ever heard of a Republican Congress holding a Republican FBI director or a Republican appointed deputy attorney general in contempt? President should pick up the phone and say, give them the documents they want.